I'm Kate. I'm a tour guide here at Historic Bethabara Park, and today we are going to talk about the process of making linen fabric. To start off with, we have to grow flax plants. They grow out in the field. They were a field crop grown outside the city. Flax grows to about waist height, a pretty green plant with blue flowers. About 2 weeks after the flowers have died off, the plant is ready to be pulled from the ground for processing. You don't have to cut flax. It has very shallow roots, so you can pull it right out of the ground. And then the next step is to let it rot. So you can do it two different ways. The first way is to lay the flax out in rows in an empty field. You let it lay for several weeks so that the dew gets it wet in the morning and then the sun gets it nice and hot in the afternoon. Or you can tie it together in a bundle, tie it with a rock, and sink that into a stream or river for a few weeks and let the water flow over it. This moisture helps to break apart the cellulose in the plant, which after you've dried it out allows them to be broken apart to get the fibers out of the inside. You don't want to pull up all of your flax right away though. You want to leave some of it so that it still has seeds for next year. The stems have pretty little seed pods on the end where the flowers had bloomed. You want to let about a third of your field go to seed so that you'll have seed to replant next year. What we can do with this is use a comb like we have here in the bucket. That'll pull the seed pods off of the stalks. We can save all those seed pods to replant, and it leaves us with some flax that can maybe be processed, but probably only for rope. It wouldn't make good linen fabric. You can see the color difference between the dried straw and the flax straw that has been retted. So this was left in a body of water for several weeks. That allowed it to go through the retting process, and it's since been laid out and dried, and now it's ready to be broken apart. So the first tool we're going to use is called a flax break. It comes into two pieces. These are nice beveled edges on the inside. These are blunt here, and this will kind of crack the stalk into pieces. That will allow the fibers that grow just under the outside shell of the plant to be released and break apart the inside stem. With just a few passes, you can see it's already starting to break apart, and you can see those fibers start to show from the inside. Now that we've finished breaking the flax, we still have little bits of the chaff, the inside stem, stuck in with the nice fiber. So what we're going to use is the scutching board and a scutching knife. This will allow us to knock the chaff away from the fibers so that we're ready to comb it out. So now that we've finished scutching, we are ready to go to the next step in the process, which is hackling. Hackles are sharp spikes. These are handmade nails that stick up through a board that we'll use like a comb. We'll start with a more coarse set. These are set about 1/2 inch apart. They're larger nails and they're not as sharp on the end. Then we'll move on to the closer set ones. These will pull out the shorter fibers so that we are just spinning the very nice long line that was inside of the flax plant. So you'll notice that as we are combing out the flax, you're going to lose quite a bit of the fiber into the combs. This that's left over is shorter pieces of fiber that don't spin well. We can use it to spin coarse thread for making tow rope or tow cloth sacks, but it would not make nice linen thread to spin into, or that can be spun to use for fabric. So now that we're finished with the coarser set, We will go on to the finer set. All right, so now that we've finished combing, you can see it almost looks like blonde hair. In fact, flax thread like this was often used to make wigs in the colonial era. After you've finished processing your flax and you have the nice long line left from inside of the plants, this can be stored by twisting it up and hanging it in your barn or your attic until you're ready to spin. Typically, spinning was done by women, and over the winter months of the year when it was too cold to be outside doing other necessary work. So the flax would then be tied to a distaff or stick that would be stuck in this hole here on the side of the spinning wheel. After that, you can use both hands. You don't have to hold it. You can use both hands to draw out the fiber and put it into the spinning wheel. You use the pedal to make the wheel go. As the wheel turns, it spins the flyer. That adds twist into the fiber and then rolls it up onto the spool of the spinning wheel. The nice thing about flax is it can be spun down into very fine thread, much finer than you can spin sheep's wool. And that allows you to have sewing thread, but also very finely woven linen fabric. Linen was the choice fabric of the day. At the time, cotton didn't grow well in this part of the world. It only really grew at the coast. And families could grow their own linen on their farm, process it themselves. The only person they needed on the outside was a weaver. Typically, there would be one in the community or in the countryside. You would take your fiber to the weaver after you had finished spinning, and they would weave it into fabric for you. The typical family grew enough flax to have about 10 yards of fabric for a year. So you have to imagine that you're going to keep wearing your clothes for quite a long time, as you're not going to be able to get a whole lot of clothing out of just 10 yards of linen.